Hello all, Project Wargaming here with a new video on a recap of a trip that I recently took to a convention here in my home state of Indiana to a town called South Bend. Now if you know anything about South Bend, this is probably what you think of. You think of the University of Notre Dame, you probably think of Notre Dame football, you might even think of the Studebakers that used to be made in South Bend. But when I think of South Bend, I think of a wargaming convention that I've always wanted to go to my entire life called the 7 Years' War. So I had a chance to get up there finally this year to go to this convention and to enjoy it. I could tell you things about it, but I think it's really best to allow the guys who have run this convention, been a part of this convention for a long time, to really tell you more about what this convention is all about.
Seven Years' War was the first World War. People have heard of Frederick the Great and the French and Indian War. It was all part of the same conflict between Great Britain and pretty much the rest of the world. Okay. Austria, France, primarily in Europe, North America. The French and Indian War preceded the American Revolution by a decade. India, Philippines, fascinating period. Several of us who like toy soldiers and war gamers went to a convention. It's called Gen Con, which out of that grew D&D. I played in the first D&D game, first and last D&D game with my friend Gary Gygax. Yeah. That's a different subject. Yeah. And we would go to these conventions, and a miniature convention is where guys show up with toy soldiers, put on battles, and generally hang around with people that like to talk about history and that sort of thing. And it was primarily Civil War, some ancient Napoleonics, and some of us had this burning interest, and we don't know why. Maybe it was the tricorn hats. As things progressed, the group got... So in 1977, one of our fellow travelers started a magazine, and he was also the owner of a company called Miniature Figurines, which was an English company, but he was their distributor in New York. So Steve Carpenter had the journal. He sent it off to guys around the world, including a guy we might talk about a little later, Christopher Duffy, who was at one point had military studies at Sandhurst Military Academy and had written a book about Frederick the Great. He was an 18th century historian. So we had 20 of us on the list that started the association. As we got together every year at the major wargame conventions, let's have our own convention, which evolved into this convention that we've done now for 40 years.
I was a kid in Indiana. I was homeschooled and very interested in military history from an early age, and specifically the 7 Years' War, and the story of Prussian history and Frederick II, the Great of Prussia. And so one of the principal authors on this period was Christopher Duffy, and I read his books at the Carmel Public Library when I was a kid, and I looked online in 2008, and I saw there was a convention in South Bend in my home state where he came and spoke once a year. And so I talked to my parents, was like, oh my gosh, we gotta go up.
When I moved from Champaign up to Chicago, I heard about this 7 Years' War. I heard about the journal first, actually. I started subscribing and saw there's a convention. It's right over in South Bend. Let's check this out. And I came one Saturday afternoon, and I was just blown away, same kind of thing, by the games and just the conversation. And standing around sort of checking out a game and listening to the guys talk, they would just kind of pull you into their conversation.
It's a lot of 20 years or something. Christopher Duffy came over from Britain and talked, and he's in many ways kind of like the English godfather of the convention.
I would agree.
But as a result of a variety of factors, he's not been able to come over since 2016, I think. And so not wanting to lose that aspect of the convention, Jim and I have tried to kind of organize some talks. And this is the first year since Christopher that we've brought in someone outside and sort of had a keynote presentation. Christopher Jurgens, who came here from Colorado, he spoke on the Hessians and their involvement in the American War of Independence.
South Bend, Indiana. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that's in there. So.
Yeah, it sounds like a strange place to have a convention, but it's between Chicago and all kinds of...
Yeah, we wanted to settle on one place a few years ago, and we were here for 20-some years in South Bend, and the old hotel, we outlasted the old, it fell down before we did, so that's good. So this place is great. They've just been great to us, and everybody kind of centrally located.
It's been the last weekend of March or the first weekend of April, but I think next year it'll be in early April. Ken's phrase is anyone in a tricorn hat, right? And,
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So, because you have some of the same people who are junior officers in the 7 Years' War are now senior officers in the War of Independence, and so we've exploited that loop quite a bit.
Absolutely.
The convention is different than other conventions. Everybody seems to say that because we set up their dealers, but the dealers are gamers. They just bring their stuff and put it on the walls, and and there's always a lot to buy. It had a camaraderie that we kind of like to keep going. You would like to see it be perpetuated, but you would also like to see it be perpetuated in a way of people that are involved and like the 18th century, want to have a convention of like-minded people to get together and talk, and hopefully they will evolve, as many of them have, into being old friends.
I mean, it's a smaller convention than most other conventions, I think. Yeah, and so as a result, it's almost kind of like a family.
It is.
I mean,
The nice thing that both Alex and I have experienced is you get adopted in almost from walking in the first time you hang out at a gaming table. You're in.
Well, there you have it, guys. You heard it from the guys who know best. The convention is a great thing. I was able to actually attend this year because it was in the fall. Lots of fun, lots of great tables. Like they said, a smaller convention, about 100 guys, maybe 150 when it gets big. But it was a lot of fun. Got to see friends that I haven't seen for a couple years, got to play games, got to learn some history. So what else can you ask for when it comes to a convention? Really consider attending, particularly if you're in the Midwest, but they have guys that travel from all over the nation for this and even the world. So hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you later.